You want to talk about it? I'd rather laugh about it. Let's get a little dark about it.
On the Traumedy Show.
Welcome to the Traumedy Show. I'm your co-host, Rachel Wilford.
And I'm your other co-host, Megan Wilford.
And we're going to start the show off by talking about Megan's cat's penis. I love my chaotic intros. And they're just like always calling you out for something.
Last night when we were talking for an hour because I hadn't seen you in so long and we had so much to update each other on.
It had been 3 hours, basically.
Yeah. You were like, what did you say to me? You said,
we were like, oh, we can talk about the launch party tomorrow. And then, you've been withholding your cat penis. because Megan's cat Zelda had a crisis. Was it last week or the week prior? It's just everything blends together.
It was the week of the launch. So we think
so it's been 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks, but it's been like ongoing for some time.
And Megan starts telling me about this crisis. And I have an aversion to cat penises. This is just like a fun fact about me. And so she starts telling me about...
you learned that they were barbed.
Correct. So Zelda has this whole issue. And then she's like, oh my God, like Zelda's just had like a cat boner this whole time, and I'm like, a barbed boner. You must, Thelonious, you must immediately stop talking about this because you need to have my live reactions on the podcast when you tell me about this. So here we are. Yeah. I have not heard the story of Zelda's boner. And now you're all gonna hear it for the first time with me.
Like that phrase.
Okay, Zelda's red rocket.
No,
Zelda's erection.
He's just a boy. He's just a baby.
Zelda's wee wee. His hard wee wee. I don't know what else to say.
Is this too explicit?
It's fine.
This is a sad story, actually. Did you say it's fine? He's a cat?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He's more than just a cat. He's my son.
So sorry. He's your firstborn. My
firstborn. My cat almost died, for your information.
I do know that. We're not joking about the near death. We're joking about the about the constant erection.
I think
to start from the beginning.
I think you have misleading information of what was actually happening.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want to just spread any misinformation on this podcast.
To start from the beginning, Zelda had a urinary tract obstruction, which is really scary for male cats. Basically, I could tell something was wrong. I took him to the vet. They found out he hadn't been able to pee for like a couple days or something, which is like could be fatal within a day. It was the week we launched the podcast.
Yeah.
It was
bad.
It was bad. It was bad.
Really stressful.
It's very stressful. It cost me a lot of money. He had to be in the hospital for 2 days. And when he came back, he was drugged out of his mind. And like, he had to have emergency surgery and he had a little catheter in. Mm-hmm. And the poor boy, I've just never known, I guess, like what my cat's penis looks like.
To your dismay.
To my dismay, I now really know. Because it's inflamed. It's not anymore, but it was inflamed because of the cat. Stop it.
Sorry.
Because of the catheter.
Yes.
And the poor
the cat theater.
Shut up.
Okay, I'm gonna just leave. Sorry.
The cat theater. And oh my gosh, this cat was just drugged out of his mind. I had to like straddle him, inject him with all of this medicine for his little ween, which was inflamed and sad.
And meanwhile, he's pissing everywhere.
Yes. So especially, he was pissing everywhere. Like he would lay down and then it would just trickle out. But
so he was covered in his own pee. Yes. Your floor was covered in his pee.
Okay, but the next morning.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
I'm going to let you tell the story.
Thank you.
I'm going to just interject with puns.
So I'm so glad he's home, but he's not in a good state. Like, this kid is drunk off of drugs. He's peeing himself. He's really sad. He's mad at me. I wake up in the morning.
Feeling like Cat Diddy. No, feeling like P. Diddy.
Cat P. Diddy. I wake up in the morning and I I open my eyes and I look down at the floor and I see Zelda looking right up at me. He has drool just hanging down. He's covered in his own piss, and he kind of just has this look where he's like, help me.
He just like crawled out of a gutter somewhere.
He crawled out of a gutter, and I was like, oh, this sewer rat. And then I it's just like in the morning, I have a meeting in like 10 minutes. I go look in my apartment and there's just puddles of pee everywhere. Because he can't. It's that feeling when you have a UTI and you feel like you have to pee really bad. Because I think he also had a UTI. He was so inflamed. He'd go in the litter box, he'd come out, and then he'd pee. He'd sit down and a little pee would come out. Like he couldn't not. And I felt so bad for him. But I wake up in the morning, there's drool everywhere. There is urine. Like
your apartment's just covered in drool and piss.
Covered, Thelonious. And I'm crying, and I feel so bad because then I have to give him his medicine. I almost have to take him back to the hospital.
No.
I clean everything up, but it just keeps happening, and eventually it stopped. But the Red Rock. It's sad because it's inflamed. And he's just sad. And I'm like,
it wasn't a happy peen.
No, it was I'm already crying.
We haven't even gotten to your juicy stuff yet. Oh God.
I can't believe we're starting off the podcast like this. So that was my life for like a week. He would be better, but then during a meeting he just would decide, no, I'm going to pee on everything.
So did you see the barbs?
I did not see the barbs.
Okay, I need to explain to them why I have an aversion to cat penises. It's
okay.
Penises? We're going to look that up later. I learned a number of years ago that male cats, when they go to procreate.
I can't believe we're talking about this.
If anyone doesn't know this, you're going to be horrified. They have barbs on their penises. So then when they enter a female cat, it's like they just like hook in them. It's not consensual.
No.
It's not cat-sensual. They barb inside the female cat so they can't get away.
Other animals do that too. Like
big cats? Oh God, big barbs? Big barbs. I don't like this.
A lot of animal kingdom sex is not consensual, unfortunately, which we do not stand for on this podcast.
We don't. No, we don't.
No.
Now we are canceling animals.
But Zelda's just a baby boy. He hasn't done anything.
He hasn't. He just got an infection because his mom was feeding him the wrong food. Megan's so offended and pissed off that I just said that right now.
My gosh. I should have been giving him a different food. It's all my fault.
No, it's okay. He's just a boy. He's a growing boy in more ways than one. That week he was growing in certain areas of his body.
Okay, we have to stop talking about that.
Okay, we're gonna pivot now.
Pivot.
Anyway, that's the story of the barbed cat penis.
And the time my cat almost died. And
yes, and now we're joking about it.
Yes, that's what we do. I was joking about it like the day it was maybe not the day.
You were texting me like every half hour and you're like, Thelonious, he's covered in pee again. Thelonious, he peed on the rug under my bed.
Oh yeah, I threw out the rug under my bed.
I had to come over and help you lift your bed and get out the pee rug. I cleaned this
entire apartment. Like I've spent half my life mopping the last couple weeks.
Your life. You've lost years of your life cleaning up this cat's pee.
I have. Housekeeping.
We just wanted to do some quick housekeeping updates on the wolf because since we last recorded, there's some things.
Updates.
I mean, there's updates and there's also things that I just want to add in here as clarifying little things too from last episode. Because in listening back, we were talking about how he told Amber that Brooke had his phone and was swiping on girls on Hinge. And I can 100% guarantee that was a lie because in 10 years, that man never handed me his phone to even be on once, let alone a coworker or some girl that she has his phone long enough to be swiping through it and on his dating profile while he has a girlfriend. There's absolutely no way. So I just want to like clarify that that's 100% a lie. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, which I love, is that he told Amber that he only paid for 20% of the house and he took 50% of the profit. Mm-hmm. And she was like, that was wrong of you to do. Why did you do that? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I was living there too. And she's like, that was still wrong of you to do, which I love. Girl. Yeah. Girl. Just had to throw that in there. And then, okay, the tea is I now have an informant at the Wolf's job that he no longer works at as of 2 weeks ago, who has given me permission to say by name. His name is Adam. Okay. This is the person that the Wolf told me when he brought that girl to our house and I caught him on the Ring doorbell. Mm-hmm. He texted me and said, I was out at a work hangout with Adam and his chick, and we came back to the house because his chick had to use the bathroom. I now have direct confirmation from Adam that is 100% a lie. He was not hanging out with the Wolf. They did not go to our house to use the bathroom, which I already knew. I knew that was a lie.
But to have the confirmation
feels so good. It feels so good. It feels so good. So I just love that like they're big fans of the podcast.
Yeah.
And they listen and Adam wanted to shout out Adam. Thank you for letting us go on the record with that. And then I also have confirmation because I took a video of the walk by that I did at the beach when I ran into him with the first girl that he said was his lesbian coworker. Mm-hmm. I have confirmation from them as well that was 100% not the person that he said it was. It is not his lesbian coworker.
We love confirmation.
Again, knew he was lying, but just to be able to say for 100% fact, we know that that's not true.
Yeah.
Oh, so gratifying. So gratifying. So those are our little housekeeping updates on the Wolf.
I love that we'll probably have like weekly, bi-weekly updates.
We probably will. Yeah, a little Wolf corner. Yeah. Just, we'll just howl about it for a sec.
I almost howled and I just couldn't do it.
Would have been cringy, but I would have loved it.
No, I'm going to pass.
Okay. Let's debrief the launch party because we haven't even recorded an episode of this podcast, just you and I, since we've launched.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of wild. Like we recorded with last week, but since we launched episode 1, you and I haven't just sat on this couch and debriefed.
It's been 2 weeks.
It's been, wow. Yeah. Why does it feel like it's been way longer than 2 weeks? Because literally so much has happened.
So much has happened in the last 2 weeks. It's been freaking crazy.
It's been absolutely crazy to the point where we both got sick.
Yeah. You really got it. I'm coming out of it now, but we've both been sick.
Yeah, I'm on day 11 with antibiotics now because my body said, absolutely not, you dumb bitch.
But we got a lot more downloads than we could have imagined in the first couple of weeks. It's wild to think that even strangers and people we don't know, I've never talked to, are listening to the most intimate details of your life.
Yeah.
And now mine.
Quite literally. I didn't tell anybody anything for 10 years and now I'm telling everybody everything.
It's a lot. It's really overwhelming, but it's also overwhelming in a good way.
No, and it's so cool.
It's so cool. The launch party was really fun. Very fun to have everybody in person, the people who showed up.
So many people came.
So many
people showed up and surprised me. I want to shout out Amy, who I hadn't seen in probably 5 years. And yeah, she showed up and surprised me and had flowers for us and stuff. And that was so sweet. Serena, also, I want to say, thank you so much for coming. It meant so much. We had people drive from so far away too. Uncle Chris came from Palm Springs.
Shout out to Uncle Chris.
And we had Jack from episode 1 that I talked about drive 5 hours to come for the weekend.
Jack made an appearance. That was fun.
That was so fun. That was great. Yeah, just it was a really awesome, just soul-filling night. I don't know, like friends in town too that we just love dearly and have been such amazing support systems. Like, just really showed up and showed out.
Yeah.
So,
and we had a cake.
And Garrett and Case came and dressed up as you and me.
Yeah, that was sweet.
That was cute.
Yeah. Should we read some of our suggestions?
Okay, yeah. So we had this suggestion box at our launch party of like, what questions do people have?
Oh, and it also was like, or give us a compliment, but I spelled compliment wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Jack pointed that out.
Compliment.
Let's see. This one says, both of you ladies are very brave. Kick some ass. Thank you so much.
Aww.
We absolutely will. This one says, oh, perfect. This one says they would like to know the keys to a successful divorce. We're gonna talk about that today. So I'm just gonna table this sticky right here.
The keys to a successful divorce?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've heard that phrase.
Yeah.
Oh.
You hold the keys, babe.
Maybe that's the title of my episode.
The keys to a successful divorce.
I don't know.
I wonder who wrote that. We're gonna find out.
I love it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Okay, we're gonna just put a pin in that one.
Okay.
This one's from Jacob. Rachel, I love you. Megan, I don't like you. Gee, Jacob, thanks.
Did he sign it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice he at least signed it. Because if he didn't, I would have actually been really
You
upset.
would have lost sleep over that.
I would have.
100%.
Thanks, Jacob. I don't like you either.
This one says, you guys are the best with a heart. So sweet. This one says they want to know about the Italian man from Cousin Moon.
Ooh.
So we'll get there. I think we have to do just a full, maybe, or like a half episode of
maybe
Cousin
like
Moon.
Post my breakup.
Yeah.
/ Cousin
Post
Moon.
Shrek episode.
Yeah.
Post, spoiler alert, we have another guest lined up to come in a couple weeks. And you'll find out soon who it is. Yeah. So in a little bit, we'll do a Cousin Moon episode and divulge the Italian man. This one says, Rachel's prophetic dreams. This is from Ava. We have talked a lot about my prophetic dreams now, actually. In the last episode, we did that for sure. I definitely have prophetic dream stuff to talk about in terms of my next boyfriend that we haven't talked about yet, that we will debut an episode on for sure. He's actually a big reason we started this podcast. So prophetic dreams of mine are just going to kind of be a theme throughout, honestly.
Yes.
Meg's story.
What?
Which is perfect, and that's the last sticky that I drew.
Wow.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we're just gonna, here we are.
Keys to a successful divorce.
And your story. and they had no idea that would be the perfect segue for this episode because you are going to talk about your stuff today.
Oh, it's so wild to finally talk about my stuff.
I know.
I already feel like crying. Oh my gosh.
That's okay. You can cry.
Because we've been, this is, I don't know, our 5th episode we've recorded now.
Yeah, this will be 5.
6th?
This will be 5.
Sixth one because of...
True, we already recorded Shrek. It just hasn't come out yet.
But I haven't really talked about myself yet. And
nope.
I've been able to...
And it's time.
It's time. I've been watching you talk. It's been nice to be kind of like the co-host and to add the context and now to just be like, here's what happened in my life. It's very scary. Oh my gosh. I can't believe you did this.
You're going to do great though.
Thank you. So my story, so as you know, as we've teased, I'm getting a divorce. I'm not legally divorced yet. I will be probably in like August. And I separated from my ex a year ago.
Like almost exactly.
Almost to the day.
Yeah.
It'll be a year in a few days, like May Early May is when it happened.
It's all coming around exactly a year for like both of us at the time that we record. It's kind of wild.
And if you had told me when I separated from my ex a year ago and stayed in your house that a year later we would be talking about it on a podcast, I would never believe you. So it's very full circle. But I met my ex. So we've been together 13 years. And we've been married. When we split, we had been married about 7.5. And I met him when I was 16 years old. So much like you, we were with our exes since we were children.
I think you should give some context about where you're from even too, because people probably don't even know. And like maybe even Christian like private school.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I was going to talk about that. So I met my ex when I was 16, but even before that, I am from Idaho. I know there's a good amount of people from Southern California who've listened to this podcast so far. I live in Orange County now, but I grew up in Meridian, Idaho, and that is also where I met my ex. And I went to a very small Christian school, kindergarten through 12th grade. My graduating class had 12 people. It was a great childhood, a great place to grow up, but fairly sheltered. And I grew up in a loving Christian home. I was very close with my classmates. I was a very good Christian, all things considered. I went to church. I had my wild side. I was like very into boys. You know, I drank a little bit sometimes, but really not a lot.
You didn't even watch Step Brothers.
I didn't even watch Step Brothers. No, I was a pretty good kid. And so I grew up in Idaho, and I was always a little boy crazy, but nothing bad at all. Not at all. I grew up doing community theater. Like that's where I get my like pizzazz.
My pizzazz. Showbiz, baby.
I'm definitely a theater kid. And I met my ex in theater. And so I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend until I was 16 years old.
That was the rule amongst both of our parents.
Yeah, your dad and my dad, they would share rules.
They liked to align on whatever rules I had, Megan also had as well.
Yes.
From across state lines. So annoying.
Our phones would both turn off at 10 p.m. every night.
Yes. But like you would be an hour ahead of me sometimes.
Yeah.
So and Megan and I were in constant communication, whether it was like at first it was emails, then we both got cell phones, and then so we would text literally like we were each other's boyfriends, kind of like now, but like we would talk all day long, and then come 9:00 my time and 10:00 your time, you know, at like 8:59, 9:59, we're like, okay, good night, yeah, and like you just couldn't send any more texts, you couldn't answer calls, like nothing, it just would shut off.
My phone, because we didn't have smartphones, we were T9 triple texting.
Hell yeah.
It would shut off at right at 10 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah. Every night.
Just wild.
Yep.
So my parents allowed me to have a boyfriend when I was 16. And even that was more scandalous than other kids in my class. Like a lot of people in my school were very into courting, and you're not supposed to date in high school. You can only court when you're in college, and it's just for the purpose of marriage. Like it was a very strict school, a lot of messages about the woman's role, the man's role, etc. The fact that I even kissed boys was scandalous.
Yeah. No, you were the school slut.
I was the school slut, because even before I dated my ex, I did have a few little boyfriends. They were illegal. Like I wasn't supposed to, but I did. And like I kissed a boy in the school library once and like got in trouble. I was the school slut, which really means like, oh my God, Megan's kissed a boy. I remember when you're kids, you'd have your body count, but it's like how many boys you kissed.
Yeah. You're like 3.
So to think that I went from like that boy crazy, and then my first official boyfriend I ended up marrying is kind of shocking, all things considered.
It's shocking, but it's also not, considering like your upbringing and the school you're at, and like just kind of the culture of all of that. Plus like that's what your parents did too. They were like what, middle school sweethearts basically? Like didn't they meet in like 8th grade or something?
I made a note when I was going over this in my head that Wilfords are very loyal.
Yes.
It's your parents have been together for forever.
Yeah.
More college age, but my parents had been together since they were like 14. My like a lot of my siblings had been with their people for a really long time. You, me, like, I don't know what it is about Wilfords, but we just kind of like pick someone.
Yeah.
Like that one.
It's kind of the Wilford way.
It's the Wilford way.
And maybe it shouldn't always be the Wilford way. Like, I think we're paving a new way.
Maybe at least for you and me.
Yeah. I think we're trying to pave a new way. But, yeah.
Anyway, when I met my ex, it was at a theater acting camp. And it was when my dad allowed me to do the camp. It was a summer camp. And he specifically said, I was like, please, Dad. Oh, my God. He's like, okay, only if you like don't go get a boyfriend. Stop making out with boys everywhere, Megan. And I was like, I promise. And she did not. I remember going to that camp, kind of scanning the room and being like, who am I going to date?
Who's my next makeout victim?
Who's my next victim? And
who am I going to tongue?
It's a very cute story. We were like the leads in Taming of the Shrew. We had a stage kiss. So a stage kiss was our first kiss. And then our first real kiss was after closing night. And
you were his like first
I was his first
right?
kiss, yes. Yeah. So I felt very much like, oh, I'm taking his
lip virginity.
Lip virginity. Like we used to say things like that. Yeah. And he was a senior, which felt very cool.
And you were a sophomore at the time? Or
I was a junior. I just started my junior year.
Okay.
Or summer before junior year.
Okay. Yeah.
And he went to public school. And so that was like
a bad boy. Saying that, but knowing him is not. So I couldn't even get through that.
Yeah, that is the community in which I grew up in. The fact that I had a public school boyfriend was very scandalous. And I also have uniforms, and just to like paint the picture of our classrooms were around like long oval tables.
Yeah.
Like having Socratic discussions and things like that. Socratic discussions.
You learned Latin?
I learned Latin.
Yeah.
I learned Greek.
I'm trying to think of other fun facts about your school that I remember.
Protocol. We had assigned, so we didn't have prom. We had protocol. We had assigned dates. So you weren't allowed to take a date to the prom. We didn't have prom. We had protocol where they had like specific dances that we learned, like the Posties jig and like the Cotton Eye Joe and swing dancing and whatnot. And then you'd show up to your senior. Oh, first of all, back up. You had to get your dress approved beforehand. You had to get a modesty check in the bathroom. Do you know how humiliating that is?
Yeah.
To be like,
I don't.
I am 18 years old. I have boobs and but I'm told that I need to cover to be modest, and I need to go in the bathroom and have my math teacher tell me, jump up and down and let me see how scandalous this dress is.
Really? They had to jump up and down?
It's
that
too
seems
short.
highly inappropriate. It was quite honest.
It honestly made you feel like more sexualized. I think at some point I wasn't allowed to show my shoulders, and then later that rule might have changed. But wow. And then you show up to your senior protocol and you take a name out of the hat, and that's your escort for the first half of the night for the dinner portion, and you have a sit down dinner. I mean, it's kind of fun, but also like it's not a normal high school experience.
Who was your date at protocol?
Oh, it was like a nerdy freshman boy.
Oh, really? Oh, it wasn't even someone in your grade?
No, it's freshman through senior. So
you were paired up as a junior with a freshman boy?
Oh, yeah.
Why did they do that?
And I think maybe I had a junior boy the second half. I don't know. It was completely random. Obviously male and female, because anything else would be sinful. Yeah.
Yes.
So the fact that I had a public school boyfriend and I got to go to his prom was very cool. I got to make out in the car afterward, and that I had a little bit extra of a normal high school experience because of that. And I also doing community theater. I think that's why I turned out a little more normal, or not so sheltered, because
just kidding.
I was a theater kid. I'd go do plays all the time. I always had a different boyfriend during what musical I was in. I had my show boyfriend, my showmance. And then I married the last one. I married the last one.
As one does.
As one does. So that's just the background of high school.
I think it's good that you set the scene. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot more I can...
It'll come out.
I feel like later episodes are, there's a lot to unpack. It's not all bad. It's just understanding where you grew up and how you see the world and sex and religion and sexuality and gender, like politics. It's so interesting to be like, I had a school handbook that literally said like women are supposed to have a quiet and meek spirit. And the school handbook literally like portrayed gender roles, which is like in my 11th grade class, I was taught like men need to be the spiritual leader, and not that I'm saying that that's wrong necessarily. It's just, that's where I came from. And I graduated, and when I graduated, my ex and I, we were deciding if we were going to be long distance or not, because I wanted to go to school in Seattle. I went to Seattle Pacific University, which is also a Christian college. God forbid I go to a public school. I thought about going to UW, but it was really intimidating to go from a very small Christian school like that to then go to Boise State or UW or a big, like I was scared. I was scared of like the public college experience. So I went to Seattle Pacific University, which is also a small private Christian college. And we decided to be long distance at the time. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is going to last. I remember thinking like, part of me felt like maybe I should be single to branch out more and to not be tied down. And then the other part of me was like, I really love this person. Let's just see how it goes. And I'm glad we were long distance, because I really did grow. If we had stayed together and I went to college like with him, that would have done me a disservice. Like, I'm glad that I did do that, because I did grow a lot in college. I still didn't. There's a lot of stuff I regret and not exploring more, not branching out. Like you and I have talked about, we never had a crazy phase. Yeah. That's now for us. Like I drank a little bit, but it was a sober campus. Like you weren't supposed to drink on campus. I partied a little. I remember thinking I partied, but looking back, I'm like, no.
One time I came and visited Megan. I think it was your freshman year. You were living with Charity in the dorms, and we went out to dinner with Megan's older sister, Lauren. And then we asked Lauren to buy us red wine at the store. And we snuck it into your dorm room, and we watched 27 Dresses. And then for some reason, we had the bright idea that the red wine was going to taste so much better if we put chai in it.
Because we couldn't stand the taste of red wine.
No, because I was 17 and you were 18. And so we were mixing chai with red wine. Oh my gosh. I think we would throw up if we did that now, but we were like, this is a revolutionary discovery. It's so delicious.
We were so badass.
No.
Me and you and my roommate split one bottle of wine, and we were like, we're drunk. And we were drinking in the dorms, and we weren't supposed to. So that was like bad. And then, my ex would come visit me in the dorm rooms, and he would spend the night, and we weren't supposed to do that either. But we were not having sex.
Nope.
We waited until we were married. So he would spend the night, and that sounds scandalous in Christian college or whatever, and I'd lie about it. I wouldn't tell the dorm RA so we wouldn't get in trouble, but all we were doing was cuddling in a twin bed now. Like that, I would actually die if I had to share a twin bed with someone.
Oh yeah. No, I can't believe I did that either.
I think one time we slept on a couch together. Ew. But again, we weren't having sex.
No.
So we just managed to be together all through college. College was honestly really hard for me. I learned a lot. I had a lot of great friends. I was in the honors college, which was really difficult. Like I spent a lot of my 4 years of college in the library, unfortunately, and playing D&D, which I don't regret that part by any means, but I do. And I was very focused on, my career, because it was at that time I majored in business, and that was kind of like the first big pivotal moment of putting myself aside throughout my 13 years of, I was with my ex. At that time, I remember thinking like, already my 19-year-old brain was like, okay, if this person's going to be my future husband, he's going to major in theater. He's going to be an actor and he wants to pursue that professionally. So I need to make sure that I can make money. So I already to support him. And my dad was very practical and was encouraging me to have a practical major, but that was my mindset.
It was a factor at play.
It was absolutely a factor. I was already kind of thinking like, okay, I need to be able to support the both of us. So I majored in business. I was a career counselor. I had some pretty difficult internships while I was at college. Like I was pretty focused on the future, which was great because I got a great internship. I got a great job out of college and I have had success in my career.
Yeah, you're a boss bitch.
Thank you.
Yes. Like no need to humble brag, full brag. Like you have had a very successful career and all kudos to you for that.
Thank you, Thelonious.
So you're welcome, Thelonious.
So I have had a successful career. I'm thankful for that. But I do remember even then I minored in theater. And I kind of wanted to major in theater because he and I were both theater.
I didn't remember that you minored in theater.
Well, I was one class short from getting the official minor.
Oh, okay.
But I was on theater scholarship.
Close enough, yeah.
Like I was in plays. I was on theater scholarship. I got to do a lot of theater classes, but I hung out with the theater kids. I felt like a theater kid. But
you are a theater kid.
I am a theater kid. But I majored in business. Boring.
You're a business theater kid.
Yeah.
You stand on business on that stage.
I do. Also, this is also Christian college, but it did start to open my eyes. I'm thankful that I went to a school in Seattle because if I had stayed in Idaho, I think I would have had a pretty sheltered, only conservative worldview. So I'm thankful to have professors, even though it was still a religious education. I feel like it did expand my horizons. I realized that being spiritual can mean a lot of things and it's not always by the book. And like, there's so much I can say on that topic later, but I did open my eyes a little bit more. I became more feminist. I became more liberal. I started to expand my views and so did my ex at the same time. I feel like he and I were kind of growing together. And it was very difficult to be long distance, but I don't know how. We just kind of managed to make it work. We had really good communication and he really became my best friend. We were pretty inseparable. And also at that time, I went to a college where ring by spring was a very normal thing to be engaged by the spring of your senior year.
Oh, I've never even heard that phrase before.
You haven't heard ring by spring?
No.
Oh, I hope that there's a lot of my Christian comrades like from SPU or high school. Like it's such a thing. The fact that I got engaged my Christmas break my senior year, I was 21 years old.
Yep.
That was not weird at all. I mean, you were also really young too, but from like my parents' perspective, my oldest sister, when she first got engaged the first time, she was like 19.
Yeah. They didn't get married.
They didn't end up getting married. But
it was a few years later that she did get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that I was like 21 was not shocking to me or my initial community. A lot of people their senior year were engaged or they were already married. And now how many of them are getting divorced? Unfortunately, not all of them by any means, but I just remember thinking in my little tiny bubble, that was not unusual. No. Out in the world, like when my internship, when I said, I have to take 3 weeks off for my honeymoon, this little 22-year-old saying like, my honeymoon, they were like, oh, you're married? Oh. And I remember thinking like, I'll show them. Like there was this attitude of like, yeah, we'll see how long that lasts, or you're way too young to get married. And I remember feeling very defensive of, yeah, well, this is different and it's going to last no matter what. And we love each other and it could never go sideways. So I just remember being really mad.
Yeah.
And now when I see people getting married when they're 22, I can't help but to have the same thought. And it's not a hard, fast rule by any means, but it is like, oh, wow, they were right. Yeah. I really didn't know I don't know.
You don't really know who you are when you're that young.
Yeah.
Like either of you, yourself or the person that you're marrying. So it's kind of hard to be like, yeah, I'm committing to this person for the rest of my life when I don't know who I am and you don't know who you are. Like, you're not fully developed adult yet in the world.
And not to say
okay. Like, that doesn't mean that it won't last.
No, not at all. We're not saying don't get married when you're 21 or 22.
Not at all.
But it is difficult when you are such a baby grown up. Mm-hmm. Like, I am a completely different person now than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think you and I, just specifically talking from our experience, it's like, okay, yeah, we picked people really young and we outgrew them.
Yeah.
You know? And that just, I feel like it's kind of common for people, but it's not like everybody by any means.
It's also common in the Christian community. And I did not live with my ex until we were married. Mm-hmm. And we waited until we were married to have sex as well. I remember kind of wanting... I remember finding out that you didn't wait till you were married. I don't know if you want to keep this...
No, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I remember finding out that you didn't wait until you were married. Yeah. And I was like... Well, I don't want to either. And I was like, Rachel, we always do everything together at the same time. Yeah. I was like, why didn't we lose our virginity on the same night?
And her phone doesn't turn off at night anymore? This isn't fair.
That was like a turning point for me. Seriously, when I found out that you didn't wait till you were married, because I was like, what? Why am I waiting? But my ex was actually pretty insistent that that we wait, which is interesting because he didn't grow up religious and I did. Mm-hmm. But it was very important to him. For so many reasons of you're just grown and you're told like that's the right thing to do. And I'm not out here saying that's the wrong thing to do. I just wish that that was a factor in getting married. And I see it a factor for a lot of people when they're Christian and they get married really young of like, well, we got to get married to have sex, so let's get married young. Mm-hmm. And personally, I wonder if I did not wait till marriage, if I said, you know what, I can live with this person. I'm going to wait till I'm like 26 or to get married. I don't know if I would have married that person or not.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying for myself, I would have done things differently, or there's so much about purity culture, and this podcast is not about purity culture right now, but
I think it just can become problematic when it's a reason to get married.
Oh, for sure.
Like, if it's like, this is what we stand on and this is what we believe, and like, we are waiting until we get married when that's the right time for us, like, great. But if it's like, we're rushing to get married so that we can have sex, like, then maybe
and you're like 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of negatives in that, in my experience and other friends in my community in general. So that was my experience. I waited until I was married, waited until to move together until we got married. And I will say the first few years of our marriage were great. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of this I say like, oh, I would have done this differently, that differently. Overall, I don't regret this. Being with this person, this marriage, I don't regret it.
No.
And we'll get into that more later. But the first few years were like, I'm 22. I'm seeing my friends every weekend. We're playing D&D all the time.
You were living in Seattle.
I was living in Seattle. We had a really small apartment that was just on the main street. Like, we were going out all the time. It was just kind of blissful. I don't know. It was a good few years. He was working part-time at a bakery. I was working my tech job, and he was trying to get into acting. And he did have some success. He managed to get an agent in Seattle, and he got some roles, and we were starting to see a little bit of success there. And he started to tease the idea of moving to Los Angeles. And I remember him first bringing that up, and I was like, ooh, I hate that idea. Like, I was so opposed.
Well, you had all your people in Seattle, except me, but like everybody else was there.
I had my entire life in Seattle. I had all my best friends. I had my career. This was before remote work. Like, I had everything. So I was like, okay, so we don't know anyone in LA. You want us to just pick up and move, me get a new job. And I think it took a solid year or two for me to finally come around to the idea and then to actually apply and get a job. So I was applying for jobs in LA while I was working at this tech company in Seattle, and I got one, and we had like 3 weeks to move. Like, it was really fast. And
I was pumped.
That was honestly like the best part of it.
Our entire lives had never lived even in the same state. Like we've been best friends since we were born, but we've always been long distance best friends. So to then just have her an hour or two away was like heaven. And now you're around the corner, which is, I'm so spoiled.
I can't imagine anything.
I know we can't go back to any other
we've
way.
been like slowly inching closer.
Yeah.
So that, I was excited to be next to you, but otherwise it was really fucking hard.
Yeah. It was a big transition.
It was a big transition. I think I was 20.
Was it like 2018 or 2019 when you guys came here? Okay.
I'm trying to remember when it was that we moved here. It was either 2018 or 2019. I think I was 25 or 26. So still mid 20s. I got a new job at a tech company in Glendale. It was a good job. It was a hard job. And I moved to a brand new city, left all my friends. We had a really small apartment. It was just getting used to an entirely different environment. We had 2 close friends that we saw frequently. But other than that, I did leave a big community for something completely new. And he started pursuing acting, and he got a part-time job at another kind of customer service, like smoothie place. And I think the difficulty of pursuing a career in acting in Los Angeles, we knew it was going to be hard. I was so ready to stand by him and be like, I know it's going to take a while, but it's okay because I can support the both of us financially. And it's not like we're going to wait 3 months and then leave if it doesn't work. Like I'm here. I believe in you. I support this. It's going to happen. So that was kind of our mindset. And I felt very firm in that. But it was really hard. And I have to, like, it's one of the hardest things to do. And we knew it. But actually him going in and trying and thinking like, where do I even start? Like, he has no connections in LA. He has no agent. Like, there's no one he knows. And so much of it is like how you know someone. And so then it was like, okay, we discovered that the important part of acting is getting connected. So I need to start doing acting classes every week. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to pay for acting classes now. And a lot of it was...
To clarify, you were going to pay for acting classes now.
Yes.
Yes.
He was working part-time at this job, but compared to... I mean, I was more or less supporting the both of us.
Yes.
And so he'd work less hours so that he could spend more time on working on auditions and acting and doing acting classes. And it was like, these acting classes are going to pay off.
Yeah. It was a long-term investment.
Long-term investment, but they were expensive. And during this time, I was going down to see you in Carlsbad like every other weekend almost.
Yeah. Like
we were hanging out a lot. And it was fun. Like it was a good time, but it was when things started to get a little bit rockier in our relationship I had a lot of resentment because it was a really stressful job.
And you were feeling the burden for sure because you were working your ass off, supporting the both of you. And you were like, you had your faith in him and your belief in him and you were totally supportive. But it definitely was like starting to kind of weigh heavily on you of like, I just kind of want somebody who can, you know, meet me a little bit more halfway here.
Yeah.
It was just hard.
It was hard. It was difficult when... like maybe I was at work all day and I come home and he didn't have work that day. And then it almost felt this like he had to show me what he did that day. And it was difficult for the both of us
like
because
report card.
And then he would do more dishes or something to try to help. And there were some days too, like the mental toll, and he struggled with, he had an autoimmune condition as well, like mental health and whatnot. So it's like some days he just couldn't get anything done. But then that was really hard when I remember being so frustrated of like, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If I have a hard day, I can't stay home and just take a day off. Like I have to go to work. And that was when I feel like we first started to have disagreements because it just wasn't, we had spent about a year in LA and there just wasn't that much to show for it yet. It was off balance. I knew it. He knew it. We were working to try to balance it. And it was difficult. And then the pandemic started. We were just like, I feel like getting used to Los Angeles, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to like it here. I'm making some more friends. I like the city now. And then the pandemic hit, and that was a really hard time as well. Because of his autoimmune disease, and we are generally very left, and so we were very isolated. Like I didn't see you for a year.
Yeah, I got this call. I remember getting this call from you out of the blue, and you're like, I need to tell you something. We're going to pack up and go move back to Idaho because we're not leaving our apartment, so it doesn't make sense for us to be staying here and paying a bunch of rent. We're going to go move in with his mom in Idaho. And I was just like devastated because it's like the world was shut down, and I'm like, holy crap, when am I even going to see you again? I don't know how long this is going to last. You're moving? You just got here.
Yeah.
It sucked. It was sad.
It literally felt like I just got there. And the first few months of COVID for everybody, it absolutely sucked. It sucked ass. We were not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He was working part-time, and that completely shut down. He was collecting unemployment, but I still had to work remotely full-time in this really small one-bedroom apartment and long, stressful hours. I was like overeating. I wasn't exercising. We were both gaining weight. I mean, he had started a new medication. It was a really hard time, and it made sense to go to Idaho for us at that time. Because then we got to save on rent. We had more space, but going to Idaho didn't necessarily help the situation or the mental health. No,
you were super depressed.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say, as was he, like it was a very depressing.
We both were
kind of situation. Not that you were like very grateful of living there, but it just like you packed up and left. I feel like it's fair to say a lot because of his autoimmune disease. Yeah.
I certainly would not have been reckless during the pandemic, but I took a lot of extra precaution because of my ex, and I don't resent that, but I would not have moved.
It was really hard.
I would not have moved, and it was really difficult. And when I was living in Idaho, like my parents lived down the street, and I didn't see them.
You really didn't see another soul for almost a year.
I didn't see another soul. This was during the election. I mean, I was working really long hours, and also during this time, he wasn't working.
Yeah.
Really, since that time, he didn't work after that.
Yeah.
Because he had always done in-person service jobs,
sure,
and he was on unemployment, there could have been maybe a chance for him to pick up a job remotely or something, but it just didn't end up happening. We didn't know how long it was going to last. He was just trying to make it every day in his mom's house, and I was working this really hard job. I started therapy because I could not do it anymore. Then I lost like 40 pounds.
Yeah. You leaned really heavily into just working out and eating healthy because you were like, I'm not seeing any friends. I'm not drinking. I'm not seeing family. Like you really just didn't have, you kind of almost didn't have another option. It was like your outlet.
It was absolutely my outlet, and I am grateful for it because those habits have stuck with me now.
Yeah.
To this day. Like at the very early pandemic, I was drinking a lot every day, and then I didn't drink for like 4 or 5 months or something. I got into exercise. I lost a lot of weight. And in some of that, it's like coming out of the pandemic was this rebirth or feeling like, okay, wow, we're back. Also, I'm a lot healthier now, and I have a lot more energy, and I just feel so excited. It was once he and I both got vaccinated. The second we got vaccinated, we moved back to LA, and it just felt this like breath of fresh air of like, okay, things are opening up. I can start going back to normal life. He was a lot more hesitant to start going back. I was really excited to see you again.
Yeah.
It was so wild seeing you again after that long.
We met up in a Starbucks.
Yes.
Because I was on my way. Was it on our way to Taylor's wedding?
Yeah.
And you had like just gone into town. Alexis and I were on our drive up to like the San Luis Obispo area. And Megan's going to go shopping for a dress because none of your clothes fit you anymore because you had lost so much weight.
I had no clothing
anymore. You walk into this Starbucks and it was like so shocking to even see you. Like you seriously like had totally transformed. It was crazy. And I hadn't seen you meanwhile in like over a year. It was It was like a year and 4 months or something at that point. And we just started sobbing in this Starbucks. We're just like sobbing and screaming in this Starbucks, like in the by the trash can in the corner.
And my hair was so long. Like I hadn't gotten a hair. I mean, I was like this little gangly. I was even skinnier then than I was now. I feel like I was.
Yeah, you were.
I was. Now I got a bad. So we came back. We moved back to the Valley. It felt really good to be back here again. I was seeing you a lot. And then when we did get back, there was a lot of conversation about my ex getting a job, and it just never happened. Once we got back from the pandemic, I, not that long later, got a new job too. And I was working full-time remote, and the job was paying a lot better than the other job as well. So I was doing really well in my career. And when we got back, we had a lot of conversation about whether or not he was going to work. We kind of decided, or he decided, that it wouldn't make sense for him to work part-time at one of these like customer service jobs. I think especially because he was still hesitant because of the pandemic, if I'm remembering correctly. There was still some like, I don't want to be in a high exposure setting. Like he still is on immunocompromising medications, like didn't want to expose himself that much. And it didn't make sense because I was making so much X amount of money and how much he would put in for the hours he was doing. So I think deep down, like I wasn't okay with it, but we mutually agreed that let's see how that goes. You can spend more time working on acting, working on pursuing that. And there was
drawing and stuff.
He was drawing a lot. He drew a lot during the pandemic to try to see if he can get commissions from that. That was always the goal. There was lots of different projects he was writing. I mean, he's a really talented artist. So he was also a DM and he played Dungeons and Dragons. And that was a lot of work to put that together every week. And during this time he wasn't working. I was working in a different job. Then we got into cosplay.
Yeah.
And that was like a whole, I like that whole year was just kind of circling around our cosplay and in a lot of ways was a distraction for what was really going on between the two of us. We got very, very into Comic-Con conventions. We went to LA Comic-Con. We both cosplayed for the first time. Loved it. I still love it. I still cosplay now. And it was something he and I really bonded over. We've always loved the same shows. We love cartoons. We love anime. Like we love nerd shit. And he was really, really good at it. He can make cosplays from scratch. And we started an Instagram account and then that blew up and it did really well. And then I feel like that entire year was just, we went to so many conventions. We went to New York Comic-Con. We traveled a lot. We were putting a lot of money into it. So I'm making money, but we're putting a lot of money into cosplay. And there were some weeks leading up to certain conventions where he would spend 24/7, 2 weeks straight working on armor while I'm working. But it was like, oh, this is a hobby that we're doing together and that's okay and whatnot. So in his eyes too, it was like, oh, Megan really likes cosplay. This is something that's like helping. I think he struggled in figuring out how to contribute and I struggled in voicing what it was that I needed. Yeah. We were in a tough spot, but then like, I think we were kind of in a tough spot in our marriage looking back, but we were like, oh, but we love dressing up. And then
we can go beat other people for a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun and our account did really well. And we made a lot of friends and we got a lot of followers. And so then it started to be like, oh, and then we started streaming and like, oh, we can actually make something out of this. And we got some friends to do it, etc. That was kind of that season of life. Fast forward to
when I got engaged,
November 2022. This is when our stories start to converge.
Yeah, same week, literal days.
So that is what's going on with my life. And then I meet somebody and something starts between me and this person. Let's call him Patrick. And it was very innocent at first.
I would say he aggressively pursued you.
That is a better way of putting it.
You were saying, I'm married.
Yes.
And he was aggressively pursuing you.
That is exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, that is what happened. And I remember being very shocked and surprised and kind of like, and I told my ex about it. Like, oh, this guy's really pursuing me. Oh my gosh. I told him I was married and he didn't stop. But then there's also that part of you that's like flattered.
Well, I think there was a level too of you did feel like this new person physically, like after COVID, like you had lost a lot of weight and you felt very confident in yourself. And so it was this also very flattering thing of like, this new me is getting attention like this.
Yeah.
I'm not used to this.
There's a whole other level through cosplay as well. And through feeling more comfortable with myself and feeling, it's not just because I lost weight. I just felt way more like comfortable in my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my sexuality and in myself. So that definitely did play a factor of like, oh wow, this person's coming on to me really hard.
Yes.
And instinct was, of course, no, decline advances. And I remember going back home, telling my ex about it, whatever. It was fine. I could not get that person out of my head. Like, I thought about them all day, all night. Like, there was something about that interaction of being pursued and just this like, wow, I really couldn't shake it. And I didn't know what it was. This had never happened to me before. And I was a little cautious, but I think in a moment, I knew I wanted to reach out to that person, not to start anything, just to say hi. And I waited until I was drunk to do it, to allow yourself to do something that you probably shouldn't do. I was not thinking this through at this time, but I waited till I was drunk and I said hi. And they said hi back. And it was this kind of innocent banter back and forth.
It was on social media.
It was on social media. It was really innocent at first. And quickly, I think within a couple weeks of us talking back and forth, it started to not get so innocent. And I think at one point, I was testing the waters and I decided to send a picture of just me before I went to go work out. And his response was this like instant dopamine hit of him telling me how hot I was or something. Like, I had never felt that feeling before.
Desired.
Yes. And it was so like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, desired. It was shocking. It was nerve-wracking. It was addicting. I knew it was wrong. Adrenaline. I didn't know what I was doing, but I couldn't. Like, I'm trying to process what's going on without talking to anyone about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't in therapy at the time. Like, I was just like, whoa, what am I doing? Okay, this is scary. This is new. I've never done this before. And I remember thinking at one point, like, you're just having a little phase. This is like you're having a little phase. But this person was also in a marriage that they were unhappy with. And I remember at one point we'd been talking back and forth a little bit. This was December. We didn't actually really start texting until early December. And we talked on the phone. And it was this like wild experience. He had never done anything like this. And I had never done anything. And I was very adamant of like, listen, like, I'm not looking to start an affair. I'm not going to sleep with you or whatever. But we just started talking. And then he was talking about how unhappy he was in his marriage. And I just was like, and he's like, are you happy in yours? And I was like, like, I just like hadn't been confronted with that question.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, yeah. Like, I was like, he's the only other person I've ever been with. And he's like, you've never slept with anyone? I remember him making me feel lesser than because of that, which sucks. It was manipulative to make me feel
insecure.
Yeah. I remember him he was older. He was like 10 years older than me. Had kids, had a house, had a good job. And I remember feeling like lesser than, and he'd talk to me like I was so inexperienced.
Condescending,
but in like a flirty way of, oh, I can show you some things, or like, and I don't know, like I couldn't believe that I was even having these conversations. And I just kept telling myself of like, this is some weird phase that you got to get out of your system. This is not something that you should be doing. But it was the first time I ever stopped to really think like, oh, are you happy in your marriage? So I was just ignoring all of my little red flags. I was just keeping this to myself, did not tell you about this. And I was texting this guy, and then my ex found out about it. And at this point,
Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Or was it Christmas Eve?
Well,
it was Christmas Eve.
Okay.
It was Christmas Eve. And at this point, like he and we were definitely having a virtual affair at this point. And so it had only been going on like a month, and it was completely wrong and inappropriate. And I admit that it was an affair at that time. And it was in the morning, Christmas morning. It was the first Christmas my ex and I were going to spend the holiday, just me and him. We didn't go home. I had my phone out too much, and he saw something on my phone, and he saw the app that I was using to text this person. And he was like, what is this? Like, what are you doing? And I just remember like, I remember my fucking life just flashing before my eyes, everything fall apart. I felt so immediately ashamed, and I don't know. It was devastating. I knew it was, and I immediately was like, I'm so sorry. It meant nothing. Like, I don't know why I did it. I don't know. And really at that time, I didn't. I really didn't. You were
like kind of just living in this fantasy world a little bit that you completely like kept separate.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was in your reality.
It was in reality.
Yeah.
And I thought I maybe would just stop doing it at some point, and then just that would be a weird phase where I texted that guy that one time and that was wrong. Like I wasn't thinking. And when my ex caught me and confronted me, and I saw how it hurt him, and I realized the gravity and what I had done, it was devastating. I mean, Christmas was ruined.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Christmas was ruined. We immediately started counseling. I remember thinking like, I need to do whatever I can to make this right.
You came and stayed with me for a day or two.
Yes.
Also,
I called you, told you about it, like on Christmas Day.
I was at the Wolf's house.
Yes.
We were making cookies with his family.
You guys had just gotten engaged.
We had just gotten engaged. My hands were covered in flour, and Megan texted me and she's like, hey, are you busy? Can I call you? And I was like,
you just know something's wrong.
What the hell is happening? Like, I just like knew it was weird. And so then I immediately just walk outside with flour in my hands, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And you just break down on the phone.
And I think I started off the conversation with, I had an affair and he found out.
Yeah. It was so shocking to hear.
Like the last thing you would expect to hear on Christmas Day.
No. And from you.
From me.
From you especially. Like, and you guys had a very, to put it into context too, like, you guys had a very trusting, like, relationship where I feel like you guys were, you know, on each other's phones. Like, there was never any worry between the two of you, like, ever. It was just not a thing. Not a thing. Not a thing.
I think that's why it shocked me, my friend. Like, I never felt jealous with him, with anyone else.
No.
And he never felt this way about me.
No.
Like, we really, though we had issues in our marriage and there was these things with work and all things considered, though, like, we had a really good relationship.
To a level that, like, I couldn't even comprehend, because I was like, how do you even get that?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get a person that you literally, like, the two of you just don't worry about each other at all in that capacity?
No.
Like, that's just completely a foreign concept to me. It was then, it still is.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, to put it into context, you guys just never had, it was not even a thought.
We thought we had, like, a perfect relationship on, like, for some time, maybe we did. Like, I don't know. Like, we we really didn't ever, I just never fucking thought that would happen.
Yeah.
Ever. And then all of a sudden it did. And Christmas Day, he finds out. And I think we had an appointment with a marriage therapist. Like,
yeah, you made it at my house.
I made it at your house. But I think it was like 3 days later. And we had our first marriage crisis therapy session the day that you had a New Year's Eve party.
That's right. Yeah, we had a New Year's Eve party at my parents' house with all our friends, and the wolf was there, and I was the only person that knew what was going on. Yeah. I had told the wolf too, but yeah, just the two of us, and you guys showed up late because you just had your first session, and we just pretended like nothing was going on. We
just pretended like everything was fine.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the theme of the next few months after that.
Yeah.
You were the only one I felt comfortable telling it. I remember thinking like Rachel is the only one who was ever going to know that this happened. Like I don't think my ex ended up telling his mom.
It's so wild that you just said that and now we're like talking about it like this. Holy shit. Like I just had this moment of like, whoa.
I did not think anyone else in the world would know except you.
I'm so proud of you. Sorry, I'm getting emotional right now. I'm proud of you. Okay.
And I think I let him tell one friend. So not a mutual friend of ours, because I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
He told another friend that he had from college. And then the next few months after that were hell. You are crying so much and it's making me
sorry. They're just sitting there. I'm not crying anymore. They're just sitting there. So I'll move them.
Oh, but now it's just gonna start.
It's okay. It's all right.
The next few months were really hard. I'd say like the first month, January, it was full speed ahead, crisis control. I was reading books about affairs. I was trying to process, why did I do that? And like, I cut things off with this guy. I was so sure that wasn't going to pick that up again. And then the therapist, she kind of sucked, but at the same time, she kind of put a lot of blame on my ex. And that was really hard for him. I think some of that, she had some points, but it was weirdly unfounded. And then she was like, I think she clearly wants children. She has all of this burden on her.
That's a point too that you didn't touch on yet.
That's a point. We started to unpack what was wrong in our marriage, because he and I just had this like great marriage. We cosplayed, like we had so much fun. We loved each other. We
Besties.
were best friends. He was my best fucking friend. But then we started to have these really difficult marriage therapy sessions of like, I was like, oh, I am overburdened and overwhelmed. And I had some of the stuff we had fights about a little bit here and there about him not working, but never had I expressed it in that way. Especially I had a one-on-one session with this therapist and he had a one-on-one session. And in my session, I remember just sobbing, thinking like, I am so tired and I don't feel like this is even. This isn't.
For a long time.
Like, I think I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
I work really fucking hard and I don't like my job. Like, I don't like corporate America, and he is pursuing something. Like, pursuing his acting is hard, but like, he's had the luxury of not having to worry about bills and rent and healthcare and all of these things, and even taxes. And it wasn't just that, it was like this like social burden. It's that mental load, even though we didn't have children. And I remember realizing that I was really attracted to the fact that this person had kids.
Yeah.
And he did have a house.
Yeah.
And
a good job.
And a good job. And and then our therapist was convinced that it was the kids thing, which is part of it. I realized I was like very attracted to the fact that he was a dad.
Yeah.
Like, that's so hot to me.
Your ex didn't want kids, and you kind of for years were just like, well, okay, so then neither do I.
Yes.
Like you kind of just were like resigned to, he doesn't want them, so I guess I'm not going to have them, so I need to convince myself that that's also what I want. And
when I'd get like really drunk though, I'd cry about it.
I know, like deep down, like I knew that wasn't true. And like, you would kind of waver on it or waffle on it when we're drinking or whatever. And I was like, oh, I know that that's not really what she wants.
And when we got married, he was 23 and I was 22, and he was pretty sure he didn't want kids at that point, but it was like this maybe, we'll see, we're still young. And I was really resigned when I was 22 of, if he never wants kids, that's okay, because I love this person and I'm choosing that. And then when you're 29, when you're 29 and you start to see your friends have kids and you have those urges, and I really was convincing myself that I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't imagine a life without him. This is my person. So maybe I don't want kids. So there was that. And then we got to
it's okay on both sides to change your mind. It's okay that he changed his mind and said, it's just not for me. And it's okay that you change your mind and you're like, shit, it is for me.
Yeah.
Like you both kind of
people change their minds, and that's okay. And it's like, is kids is it a deal breaker for you or is it not? Like, it's a reason to break up if it's a deal breaker. If it's like, I really don't, I don't want to resent my partner forever because of that.
In either direction.
And during this time, this like 3 or 4 months where we were going to therapy and trying to make our relationship work, there was a moment where he broke out in tears, and he's like, he said, I would do whatever it takes to make this work. And if that means having kids, then let's have kids. And that meant a lot to me. Like, I was like, whoa, okay. Like, he's open to having children. Like, maybe we could get a house. Maybe we could do this. But at the same time, I was scared of like, I don't want to have kids with someone who doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Who's doing it to keep it together.
And then he's not fully in it, and it's just another thing that you have to take care of and do. And like, while you have the job and everything too, like, just piling on responsibilities onto you.
Yeah. During that time too, like it was really apparent, like, I need you to work. It doesn't matter how much money you're making, but the fact that you aren't working is really difficult. So he started doing DoorDash and Uber Eats, and it was kind of helping, but it kind of wasn't. And then he decided he wanted to switch gears altogether and pursue coding instead of acting, completely change career paths, a very expensive coding boot camp that it's almost like another college degree in a really short amount of time. That was a big investment.
Yeah. That you were going to pay for.
That we would pay for. But up until this point, that was the money that I had been making.
Yeah.
And it gave me anxiety because I wasn't sure. It felt like a rush decision or grasping. It made me nervous how much it was.
And it was a really big jump from like acting, artist, drawing, whatever, to coding. Like it was completely like out of the box for him too.
Yeah.
So that, I feel like there was a level there of like, I'm like nervous to like, is this really actually going to be a thing? Because we're about to spend a lot of money.
And like a year-long course that he would be working full-time in, that I would still be supporting the both of us during that time.
Yeah.
And during all of this, we decided that we didn't need marriage therapy anymore. There was a time where I was doing like almost 3 therapy sessions a week.
Yeah.
Like that was a rough time. But during marriage therapy, I got an individual therapist, and I started somewhere new, and so did my ex. He and I were both in individual therapy as well as couples counseling. And that was very interesting because we were in therapy trying to fix our marriage, but then in my individual therapy, I'm like, do I want to stay in this marriage? And then it felt like this weird kind of lying to myself. And I was so sure for a while, like, no, I know I want this to work. I don't want to blow up my life. I don't want to leave him. I'm just struggling. Also during this time, I started talking to Patrick again, I think is what we called him. Kind of innocently at first.
And this was like February-ish.
This was February-ish.
It's around the time that we like were closing on my house and I was moving into it.
Yes.
With the wolf. Just to keep the parallel of the stories going.
Keep the parallels going. I think I was thinking about him all the time, even as we were working on it, even though I was so focused on making it work. I just couldn't. It was the same time of like talking with my individual therapist of, am I happy? What do I want in life? Am I happy in this marriage? It was just that same addiction of like, I couldn't not talk to this person anymore. And you were
almost like trying to maybe even escape what was like going on in your real life.
Yeah.
Of just like
this. It was this like little escape. It was honestly the only thing making me happy.
Yeah.
I was so faking it. We were going to Comic-Cons. I was going to parties. Like I was miserable. I mean, yeah, that was definitely the most miserable time of my life, when I was not being honest with my partner. Or myself. And I was trying to fix my marriage at the same time in therapy, questioning so many things, starting to have resentment I remember feeling like I didn't choose this life. And that was it's like, I did choose it technically, but I was like a kid. And I picked my major to support this person, and I got married when I was 22. The only person I'd ever slept with, and I remember feeling like I had missed out there, or like, are we even compatible sexually? Like, I was questioning my own sexuality at the time as well, but I just felt like, oh, I can't ever explore that. And
you had nothing to compare any of these things to. You were like at war with yourself, like your old self and your current self and like the new self that was trying to go. It was just like this whole battle.
I was like trying to break out and go to parties. I just was feeling so trapped, and like, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? There was a time, I think, when I really wanted to convince him everything was okay, so that I could have some more time on my own to think about what I wanted, which is hard. Like, and I know that when it finally ended, that was a huge thing that he had with me of like, you weren't telling me these things. And I was like, I remember thinking, I don't want to be honest with you if I'm trying to decide if I want to leave this marriage or not.
You almost needed like the space. You didn't.
I didn't.
You guys were kind of on top of each other.
That was a whole other thing.
He didn't trust you.
And then he didn't trust me for that entire time. All of a sudden, trust was broken. Of course, it takes a long time to build trust again.
Yeah.
He didn't trust me. Yeah, he was frustrated that I hadn't been fully honest with him, because when we finished marriage therapy, when we graduated, we'd have these weekly check-ins. I would act like everything was going fine, and it was not. For the first month, maybe, but then like come around February, when I started talking to Patrick again, everything was not fine. And I think I was like slowly starting to inch towards why I was reaching out to this other person and why things weren't okay. And I just felt like I needed to figure it out on my own. But I worked from home, and he also didn't have a job. So we were on top of each other.
Yeah.
And that, sorry, my cat, he came over, he saw me crying. That was difficult, because I felt like I had no space, no room.
Yeah.
And I started talking to this person again, and you could tell something was off.
Yeah, it was April, literally it was April 15th. I'll never forget this day. It was 2 days before like we started premarital counseling and all my shit started to blow up. We went down and had a girls' weekend at Alexis's place. and guarantee the wolf had Maggie over that night or something while I was gone and slept elsewhere or whatever. But you came to my place, and then we were going to carpool down there. And before we started driving, I took you on a walk because I was like, because I think the last time I had seen you was St. Patrick's Day at our housewarming party. And I just know you so well. Mm-hmm. I remember like you being in my house and I was like, something is off. Like you hadn't told me that you had started talking to Patrick again, but like even your behavior in like group chats and stuff, like for like a month, I could tell that something was really, really wrong. And I didn't know how to, I knew it had to like do with this, but I didn't know how to ask you or like whatever. So finally we go on this walk and I like kind of gently tried to ask you like, what's going on? Like, I'm really worried about you. Are you okay? And we had this like tearful hug, and then you just convinced me, no, everything's okay.
Like, no, everything's fine.
He's starting this coding class. We stopped doing marriage therapy because we didn't like it and whatever. And like, you convinced me that everything was okay. And I just was kind of resigned to believe you, but I didn't.
You didn't really have any other choice at that point.
No, because you didn't say.
You were like, damn. If I took that lifeline, you threw me a lifeline, and you knew something was wrong, and I was so fucking miserable and so confused and sad and trying to figure it out, but I just had this like burden of like, gotta figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And also, I knew I shouldn't be talking to Patrick, and I felt so much shame from that, but it was like this.
You didn't want me to tell you to not.
I knew you would tell me to stop talking to. I mean, you would say it very,
of course,
kindly, but I knew it was wrong, so I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to stop, because it was the only thing giving me any sort of like ounce of joy during that time.
Do you want to talk about the house thing too? You guys almost bought a house.
Oh yeah. So also
during like right now,
also during this exact time, while I am having this virtual affair with this person, my ex and I almost buy a house.
My mom contacts you and she's like, there's this great thing going on with the government. You guys could buy a house. I could help you. So you guys like almost buy a place.
We literally signed the documents. It was a done deal. And then last minute, the funding from the government fell through and it didn't work out.
Which was such a godsend.
Which is such a God thing. Like, if we had ended up buying a house, that's the level of delusion that I was. Because I knew I was talking to Patrick and my marriage was not okay, but I just thought I would figure it out. Like, this is something I need to figure out, need to come to terms with where I am in my life. And that is the level of delusion that I was at, that I was going to buy a house with this person. Because I thought we were going to be okay. At this time, I was like, I'm going through something. I'm talking to this person I shouldn't be, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out how to be happy in this marriage again. And once I do that, I'm going to stop talking to this person and we're going to buy a house and it's going to be fun. Like,
it was like this fantasy world over here and the reality world over here. And you're like, I can keep them separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were two different worlds, but I don't ever want to live life like that again. It was miserable to have that, to not be honest with my partner, to not be honest with you or my friends.
Or yourself.
Or myself. I wasn't even honest with my therapist. I was, but I would kind of like hint to my therapist that I was talking to Patrick again, but I wouldn't say it in so many words. I'm sure they knew, but I wasn't honest with anybody. I kept it all in my head. And fast forward to this kind of weird time I'm going through, there's an opportunity to see this person in real life. And it kind of got to this point where I was so miserable and confused, and there was a lot, like, this person I had been texting a lot, there was so much tension. I kind of convinced myself this is gonna help me decide what to do, or that I needed to do this. I needed to sleep with this person because it was either going to wake me up and be like, nope, that was wrong. You need to double down, fix your marriage, fix this, or it'll wake you up and be like, you need to go. Looking back, I think I also knew, like, even the first time when my ex found out about me having this virtual affair, he wanted to fix it. He wanted to make it right. And that's what's also so fucking hard about this, is that this person loved... This person was my best friend and they loved me. And I think part of me needed to do the worst thing I could do, because I didn't think he would forgive me. I didn't think he'd want to take me back. I don't know what I was thinking. I blew it up on purpose. And I did it. It didn't feel right. Absolutely. There was no doubt about it. I mean, like, afterward, it's not like I knew I couldn't continue. Mm-hmm. And it was just this like, shit, that was wrong. What am I going to do now? Like, my initial reaction was like, oops, got to fix my marriage. Don't ever do that again. But then, like, with a couple days more clarity, I knew I needed to leave and I needed to tell him. Mm-hmm. Like, that there was a week that I had to go to a work conference right after I had the affair. And it was like the worst week of my life. This is really when our stories converged, because I just did the worst possible thing you could do, but I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my therapist. I didn't tell you. I was at this work conference just trying to keep it together, and I needed help. Like, it kind of just got to the point where I knew I needed to leave. And so it was when you opened up to me about
Grace.
I
had just found the document about Grace, and the wolf was lying to me and telling me, you know, his made up timeline that it ended in COVID. And so I was choosing to forgive him and stay. And I was kind of making my rounds of just letting a couple people like know. And I felt like you were one of them that I obviously wanted to tell. And it was like, you know, 2 weeks before my bachelorette party. And like, I just was kind of sick of living in like my own shit of keeping secrets. And so I called you and told you what had happened and came clean about Grace, of what I knew at the time. And I told you, like, I remember I was like, I'm forgiving him, and I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. And like, we love each other. We've come this far. And you just broke down. We were on FaceTime and you just broke down. Yeah. Wasn't he with you on this work trip? He just was like,
he was with me because he didn't trust me.
Yeah.
Like, he also, when it happened, my ex knew. Like, he kind of knew. I didn't tell him until like a week later. But when it did happen, like, he could tell something was off, and he didn't trust me. Mm-hmm. And I do not ever want to be in a situation like that again. So he came with me on this work trip. And so when you and I were FaceTiming, he was like in the lobby.
Yeah.
And I remember whispering or something, like,
you broke down and you told me.
I told you
that I had
an affair, that I
Patrick.
slept with him, that I had that. And then I said, I need to leave my husband. Like, I need a separation.
Yep.
I didn't know at that time that I needed to leave. I knew I needed a separation.
Yeah. We started talking it through, and I was like, okay, Megan, how are we going to tell him? When are we going to tell him? Mm-hmm. Like, when? And you're like, I'm stuck on this work trip. Like, we're seeing our friends. Like, this is the timing. It just sucks. Like, how am I supposed to do this now? And so we kind of just like made a plan of like, okay, we're going to stick it out for a couple of days. And like, when you get home, it's when we're going to pull trig, because you can't live like this anymore.
No. I knew once I told you,
and it's not fair to him.
No. Yeah. And I knew once I told you, it would, okay.
Yeah.
And you and I have also talked about like, okay, let's never fucking like keep shit to ourselves again. Yeah. Because we both just didn't.
It's bad.
We kept it on the inside. Mm-hmm. So we made a plan, and it was 3 days later when we finally got home. He had he had to go to a friend's house. I packed a bag and he came back and I told him, and he knew, like, he was like, I knew it. Like, I knew I had to. I mean, I've had people ask like, oh, why didn't you just leave? But like, I needed to come clean and tell him right away. And it was bad.
Well, you have a conscience and you have a good heart, and you knew that you had done wrong, but you wanted to do as much right as you could.
Yeah.
After that. It was such this weird dichotomy too of like,
yeah,
I had just found out about the Wolf's affair.
Yeah.
And then it was like, you came in and were like, I had an affair. Like, it's been going on. And it was this weird, and then you came and lived with us while we're like working through ours. And like, it was just the most surreal time.
No, it was
like, can't even put it into words.
We kept thinking like, okay, this is happening at the same time for a reason.
Yeah.
And for a moment we were wondering like, oh, this is because, and I mean, I will say you were so graceful and forgiving and empathetic and kind towards me, you know, not judging at all, which I will always fucking appreciate for the rest of my life. But then it was like, maybe this is so that to help you be understanding towards the wolf.
Yeah.
We thought it was this like, and that's also why I was more forgiving towards him too. Because I was like, oh. And I was doing so much work at this time of figuring out why I had the affair. Why did I do that? How do I make sure I don't ever do that again or put myself in that position? And I remember asking him, the wolf, like, why did...
And this is what I want to say right fucking now is like the differences between Megan's story and what the wolf did. It's just a stark contrast. Like, you cannot compare the two. And I think at the time I was trying to, because I was trying to justify what he was doing based on like, well, I love you and we have compassion for you and whatever. It's so not the same. He has zero regard for how his actions affected me or any other woman he was involved with. He didn't give a shit. He did not give a shit. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep doing it. He did it for 10 years. He never once came clean about anything.
Yeah.
He never came to me with information. He never was like, I gotta come clean and tell you the truth. Like, I cannot fathom what I'm doing to you. I'm hurting you so bad. No, it was never that. It was never that. And so I want to make it so clear that these two things are so different. And no, there is no compassion for this person who just continues to repeat this behavior over and over and over and over and over again, versus you, 100% compassion. Like, people, this is a human error in a really hard, difficult time. And we're neither of us are sitting here excusing affairs or lying. Neither of us are doing that. But we will say that good people can hurt people sometimes, and they can, you know, make a mistake or make a hard choice in order to learn and grow. And like, I can 100% in full confidence sit here and know that this is not something you would ever repeat again. And that's the difference. That's the difference. And I just want to make it so fucking clear that like, we love Megan. We love Megan, and we love people who make mistakes and you know, fuck up and like and have an oopsie in a relationship or whatever. It's different than a serial cheater and a narcissist and a pathological liar. That's not you. And I want to make it just crystal fucking clear for the record.
I think that's what's so impactful too about me sharing this story right after talking about the wolf for so long. To just be like, yeah, that sucks what he did and what he continues to do, but like, oops, I had an affair too. But it's this other side of it. And why I'm telling this story. Like when we initially started the podcast, when they had the idea of the podcast, I was so reluctant to talk about this.
You like had a breakdown for a week.
I had a mental breakdown
thinking about it. There's been so much fear here constantly in this whole process for you. And of course, you have a lot of shame about this.
Like,
and I think that's so evident.
I was committed to talking about it, but not talking about the affair. Because I don't have to. I don't need to. I don't owe that to anyone. I know that this will be met with judgment from some people, and especially those who've been wronged. And I can totally understand that. And I just have to accept and know that there's going to be some people who are going to think differently about me from now on. But on the other side, I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with other women and men as well who they have made the same mistake that I have, but no one fucking talks about it.
Yeah, it's very taboo.
No one talks about it. The reasons why we end up feeling trapped, or we do it to blow up our lives, or it's the indication of something wrong in our marriage. Like we don't talk about it. We keep it in. We feel the shame, and I still struggle with it all the time. Like when
I know you do.
When we first launched this podcast and we had all of these people come out to support you, I remember just still so mad that I did what I did, because that's always going to be a part of my story. And it's understandably so, but people will say things, just blanket statements, fuck cheaters, they never change. And when I read those comments, I know that they aren't necessarily talking about me, but I internalize it. And
of course,
I know that they're talking about the people who wronged them, who don't have remorse. But God, I'm not trying to throw a pity party, but it's like this shame.
You're not.
The shame that I still feel, but the ability to also make other people feel seen and heard.
You are going to help people by talking about this in a completely different way. Like that's what's so cool is like I can help the people who have been cheated on or have been wronged like severely, you know, or whatever in any capacity. And you can help the people that like are human and have made this same error on the other side. Then we can also sit here and say that like we have love and compassion for both. We do. And I think that's what's so fucking cool about this. And I'm so proud of you because you could have easily come on here and told this story without this detail.
Yeah.
But I have so much fucking respect for you for talking about this detail because I know how scared you've been to do it. And I know that there are going to be so many people that hear this and feel finally like someone gets them and like that they don't have to feel so alone in feeling their shame too.
Yeah.
Like I'm really proud of you. And I know that I'm not the only one that's listening to this and respects you for this too. So you should be proud of yourself. And I think that there's a reason, you know, for everything. And that this can come full circle and you can talk about it almost like to the day on the anniversary.
Literally a year ago.
I know. And there's, even if there's just one person that hears this and it helps and they don't feel so alone, maybe it's worth it.
That's finally what ended up seeing the response and the people who connected so much to your story. I just was like, if I could have someone reach out to me and feel less alone, less judged, less ashamed, not that like by no means am I supporting affairs.
No, we're not.
I really, also, if I can help anyone who is in a position where they are considering it, that is the other thing, because I wish I could go back and be like, I don't regret anything. No, I regret doing this. Yeah. At the time, I felt like it was my only choice and I needed to blow up my life to figure out who I was to get out of my marriage. But I really fucking hurt a person and I can't take that back.
Yeah. And we recognize and we honor that too.
I can never take that back. And I wish I could have figured it out without the affair. I don't know if I could have. But if you are in a position right now where you are in a relationship and you notice flirting with other people, or you're noticing other people, or you're having harmless conversations and these feelings are coming up, like, look within yourself and your current relationship, and is there something wrong that needs to be addressed? And can you do that without stepping outside of your relationship or your marriage? Because then you're going to be able to hold your integrity, and you don't have to have, because I always have to have that on my story, and like I will, and I own it. But if you can get out of your relationship and not deceive that other person, I think that's also worth it. Of like, take my story, like, don't do it.
Yeah.
But if you do, like, I'll still love you.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you admit you did what was wrong, you own up to it.
And learn from it.
And learn from it.
Commit to, like, being better, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you've done. And I think, like, yeah, okay, like, in terms of integrity, you know, you feel like you've gotten, like, this chink in your integrous armor or something. But, like, I think that there is so much integrity here in you even just talking about this, too. Like, in a roundabout way. You know what I mean? Like, you are showing your integrity by being so fucking vulnerable and talking about this. That's the difference between you and him. You and the wolf. He doesn't have integrity.
And he fucking told This was another part that made me really mad.
Say it.
When we met Amber, when she was on our podcast last week, I was talking with her earlier, and she told me, the wolf said that you were cheating on your husband. Like, he was talking shit about you and said, like, oh yeah, well, Megan, don't listen to what Megan says because she's a cheater.
And as if he's not, as if he is better, like, absolutely the fuck not.
I was so upset. But then I felt like they were waiting for me to be like, oh, that's not true. I didn't do that. So then I just had to stand there and be like, oh, well, that sucks. Technically, yes, but they were very different situations. And
now, but look, here you are. You get to come on here and own your own story. He never gets to do that, and he never will do that. He wanted to shine the light on you and make you look like shit because he can't shine the light on himself and actually ever redeem himself. But like, he's so insecure that's why he did that. Not, it has no bearing on you or who you are as a person. Like, and everybody can see it. It's so painfully obvious. Like, you have so much integrity and strength and bravery to come and do this right now.
Thanks.
There's no way in fucking hell he would ever. He will always point the finger at anybody that he can, whether it's me, whether it's Amber, whether it's you, who the fuck ever, whether it's John Travolta. I don't give a shit. He will always blame all his shit on somebody else and try to make other people look bad because he knows that he looks so bad, and he won't redeem himself. So fuck that.
Yeah, it made me pretty mad.
Yes, because then you have to go and answer for yourself. You're already on the defense.
Yeah. It made a lot of little conversations over the last couple weeks really did make me finally decide to talk about this. Like, I changed my mind like 10 times.
I know.
And you were always just like, okay, whatever you want to talk about. You don't have to say anything you don't want to. And like,
we can re-record if we need to.
We were going to do 2 versions of it. So I'm glad I finally decided to do. I've been talking to my therapist a lot about this. Shout out to fucking therapy.
Shout out.
Same therapist as a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've been wrestling with this for months.
Yeah, for months. So it feels really crazy. I mean, the episode isn't out yet right now as I'm saying this, but it's wild that I've actually said it out loud. Mm-hmm. It's going to make some people upset with me in my life, but I feel...
Who can be upset with you for coming out and owning a mistake publicly and being like, I did this, I hurt somebody, and I'm trying to do the next right thing, which is help somebody else who maybe has been in this situation too, or help somebody not also make the same mistake. People. I know you do. I know you do.
And seeing how you've done that. Yeah.
And you can and you will. You're going to. It's inevitable. It is. Because the truth always prevails, and you're telling the truth right now. And that's really fucking powerful.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Wow, I'm such a fucking baby.
No, you're not. Are you kidding me? No, you're not. This is an emotional thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's a good natural stopping point. And especially since this episode's 2 hours long now, we can just take a beat. No, it's okay. We can take a pause, and we'll go into next episode. We'll talk about like the aftermath and the months leading up to you deciding that you wanted a divorce.
First few months of the separation.
Yeah, first few months of the separation. And then I think we can go into Cousin Moon. We'll probably have time to do some Cousin Moon stuff.
That'll be
fun.
Episode.
That'll be really fun.
That'll be fun to talk about.
That'll be good. That'll be a little like fun relief.
Yes. After wow, this was a very dark, heavy episode.
Yes. just a little bit. Yeah. But you know, we had some cat penis jokes in the beginning, so I feel like it's very well rounded. But just to wrap this up, what final thoughts do you have? Like, what would you want to say to people listening? Zelda wants to be a part of this moment. Hi, buddy. Yeah. Share your final thoughts, Meg.
Final thoughts on telling the world the most intimate, biggest, scariest secret of my life. Mm-hmm. Oh, it is really sweet. Zelda came
I know.
I am so relieved and scared and nervous, but glad that I talked about this. It kind of feels like my biggest secret, my biggest shame, and to just tell everybody it and take accountability for it and own it, but then also to have the opportunity to help other people, make them feel, especially the people who might be in a similar situation as me, who's made the same mistakes. If I can make them feel seen and not judged and just understood about a really taboo topic that nobody talks about. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first made this mistake and when I was struggling, it was like, I don't know who to go to. I don't feel like I have no one talks about this because it's a really scary taboo topic. And if I can help someone, maybe a good person who's done a bad thing, help them realize they're not alone. I don't judge them. It's more about the accountability and what are you going to do moving forward. Mm-hmm. Just because you make a mistake doesn't mean you're a bad person. This is like a constant therapy discussion with me because I constantly tell myself I'm a bad person, and this is my therapist reminding me, no, you're not a bad person. And if I can do that for somebody else and remind them, again, it's about the accountability and what are you going to do moving forward and how are you going to understand why it happened. Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of it too, because I spent months even being like, how could I have done something like that? Mm-hmm. I never thought I could have done this. And so many good people who have made this horrible mistake, it's that same thought process of how on earth could I have gotten there? And understanding that, going through the therapy and the hard work of how did this happen and how do I make sure I never do this again? Mm-hmm. And in future relationships, how can I make sure I have the right communication and the right insight into my own mental health, into relationships? And I don't know. I feel really certain after what I've gone through, the darkest moment of my life, like I will never do something like that again. And I feel also more certain I would be prepared to notice the signs of that, which also is another reason why I'm glad I talked about this, because if anybody is in a relationship that's not feeling right anymore, or there's communication breakdowns, and then I feel like you so naturally seek people outside of your relationship when it's not right, when you and your partner aren't right. And it's difficult, especially if you're scared to blow up your marriage or your relationship. And if you don't want to have those hard conversations and work on it. Sometimes it feels like that easy way out of like, maybe I'll just blow it up and have this affair. Or if anything, if I can prevent someone from maybe not doing that, to really thinking about it critically and learn from my mistakes, have a conversation with your partner, have a conversation with your therapist, your best friend, with somebody, but don't keep it on the inside. Don't hide in shame. Especially if an affair might start just through texting and little Instagram flirting and whatnot. Like, notice those signs. Don't let it progress. Like, tell somebody, which is another final thought, which you and I have talked about. It's so important to have somebody in your corner, especially if you don't feel safe to talk to your partner always. Make sure you have a best friend or your sibling or your parent. Don't ever make these decisions on your own, in your own head, because you're so much more likely to make a mistake that you're going to regret if you don't share it with anybody. Like that accountability is a big theme for us in our lives now, in our podcast of hold yourself accountable, hold your friends accountable in a loving, supportive way, but never with judgment either. No. And that's what's so beautiful about it. If a friend comes to me and has done something shitty to somebody else, I'm not going to be like, wow, how dare you? It's like, let's talk about it. How can we make this right? Like, you're not a bad person. You made a mistake. So what can we do? Yeah.
Yeah. If you take one thing away from this podcast, like, have a person. Just it doesn't need to be a big network of people that you tell everything to. Like, have one safe person, because if I had told one person in 10 years anything that I was going through, maybe it would have saved me some years. And like, I think that became super evident in the next relationship that I entered. Like, I was very committed to, I'm going to tell Megan literally everything all the time that's going on. I'm not going to like hide things and make excuses for this person. Like, I'm going to be fully honest with Megan. That is the person I'm going to be fully honest with. And it got me out way sooner. And, you know, it's just like, you can't just spiral in your own head or just tuck things away and hope that they get better. You need a sounding board.
You need a sounding board.
A person. Find a person.
Find a Thelonious.
Go out into the wild and find a Thelonious and tell them everything.
Your darkest secret.
And then start a podcast with them.
And then tell the world.
Yeah. Tell your Thelonious and then tell the world publicly on camera.
You don't have to be like us and tell everybody everything, but yes.
I also want to say, I really respect you for what you said about really trying to dig deep and figure out why you did that, because I think it's really easy to be like, oops, I fucked up, I made a mistake, and I'm going to just disassociate. I'm going to never think about that again because it's too painful and I have so much shame, I just can't deal with it. I think it's really easy to do that, and I think that that's how like patterns keep repeating as well. And so I don't know, I just want to say I think it's really awesome that you do go to therapy and you do like really like think about this a lot, and even when it was going on, you were, I know too, and reading books and everything. Like, I think that just says so much about your character and who you are, and I just really admire that about you. And I also want to say, like, to anyone listening, Megan did a really hard, brave thing here, and I got a lot of love and support when I shared my story, and like, I'm really, really grateful for that. But what Megan did right now was way harder than what I just did. It was way braver, way more courageous. Like, I went on and talked about somebody else's fuck ups. You came on here and just talked about your own and owned it. And so if you're listening to this and you love Megan, I would just encourage you to reach out with a kind word, because she needs love and support too, like just as much as I do, if not more, in this moment for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love you, Thelonious.
Love you, Thelonious.
Anything else?
No.
I don't even know how to describe that moment. You just like lurched. You just like, you thought about it for a total of 11 minutes.
For a long time.
For a long time. And then you just like, just did a double turn and then just lurched at me with a no.
Because I went through everything in my head. I was like, nope, I got it.
I laid it all out on the line. I got nothing left, Thelonious.
Okay. That's it.
All right. That's it. That's all we got today, folks.
That's it.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please give us good star ratings to combat the ones that the wolf is giving us. He's giving us some 1 stars. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the.traumedy.show.
Mm-hmm. And stay tuned for next week.
Yep, where Megan will cry some more.
I'm going to cry again.
Woo! You don't want to miss it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Sticks and stones are never going to shake me, oh. Oh, whoa.
Take me away.
A sweet escape. A sweet escape.
A hiding place.
A higher place.
Is it a higher place or a hiding place? Oh, shit. Take me away. I got a bucket full of don't know the words.
It's like one of our favorite songs.